Happy Friday, everybody, to one and all. I was going to originally release a video on doing the bed extension, but I managed to botch that up so much that I decided to show a DRO, digital readout. How do you say? It died on me, and so I've been spending all my time here in the past week or so trying to fix this thing and get it back online. So this video is going to be simply talking about the history of what I've been through, my opinion of the iGauge and TouchDRO setup, and then at the end here I decided I'm going to start something new, which is called a what's in it. So what is it? So if you guys can figure out what this is, leave a comment, and I'm sure somebody's going to figure this out real quick, but I'm going to get tougher and tougher at the end of every video here with different devices or different items here to see if you can guess what it is. So see you next Friday. Well, it didn't take very long after buying my first mill to realize I needed something so that I could tell where X, Y, and Z was accurately, down to a thousandth or so. And I stumbled across this guy on the internet, forgot where I bought it, but I think this is like the first generation iGauge scale. Came with these type of heads, which was great because I could just make a steel plate and X, Y, Z, done. And I like these because you could saw them to whatever length you want, so I could customize them for the mill for each axis. And this worked great for years. I loved it, no problems. It was accurate enough for what I needed to do. And I'll talk about mounting these scales and how they're touchy in a minute here. But then I got my second mill. Well, no, back up for a second. I got my second mill, and it came with these heads, giant things. And I did a video not too long ago on them, and they're, to my opinion, these are terrible. They're arms. You stack them, you try to push the button, the arm is flexing. You have to push like crazy to get it to respond to a button push. So I had remembered, somebody said, why don't you get a TouchDRO, or back then I think it was called a blue DRO. So, and yeah, the other drawback to this thing too was to find center, you had to find the edge, zero it, find the other edge, and then you had to have a calculator to figure out what's half of 0.127, or 6, and then move it to that so you're on center. So somebody said check out blue DRO, and I did find it. This was the first one that I bought. It was called blue DRO. That back then somebody else was messing with it. It's really Yuri's design, and it's called the TouchDRO today. But this one's been on my machine forever. I just needed a tablet and made a nice display. It solved the half problem because you just find one edge, zero it, the other edge, go in and say half, and it does the math for you. And it does the whole circle functions. It was beautiful. So this has been on my machine for years, and I wrote the user manual for it. And a lot of people have asked for that. And then later, I guess Yuri, to thank me, sent me another one, which died pretty quick. He changed the connectors on it to a newer generation for this type of iGauge, the Easy View DRO. So that died, and just recently this died. But in the beginning, evidently, the pickup module, it's got a microcontroller in it, and it holds the actual position, whether you're at, 2 inches, 134 thousandths. So it's held in here, and it transmits it to this unit. So this microcontroller keeps track of where you are and sends it through Bluetooth to the display. Problem was back then I was using one of these guys, and any noise, well, the processor in here creates such a surge in the amperage, the draw, that it upsets the power coming out of it, which supplies this guy, which upsets him. So all of a sudden your position reading is a mile off, and it was a real pain. And I put a scope on it and figured out, okay, it's a lot of noise going on in there, so you cannot use this. So I wound up making 3D printing a little tray, some extra caps, and used a giant transformer to run it, and it's been solid for a long time. So that's kind of one of the drawbacks to the original ones. I'll show here soon the newer generation, which seems to have solved this noise problem because it's working off a little bitty wall thing. But this ran fine for years, and I was trying to do a Swiss cube, and suddenly Z-axis died. So I've got no Z movement, I've got X and Y, and the Y was still flaky. So I'll take you over to the machine, and well, now next I'll talk about this guy and why he's touchy. Then I'll take you over to the machine and show you how I mounted things and what I'm in the process of doing. Next up, this is one of the original eye gauge scales. I don't know whether you call it generation 1 or what, and the original mounts that come with it. But from my experiences, what I found is these are really touchy. And the website for Yuri's Toys also says they're touchy. These are magnetic scales. And what I found is if this rod or scale is bowed, the readings are off. If it's tilted while this is trying to travel in a straight line, be either X, Y, or Z on the mill, the readings are off. If it's tilted at all and this pickup's trying to go this way, the readings are off. How much of a tilt bow or whatever can it take, I can't tell you, but I've always managed to keep it within 1 to 2 thousandths, usually 1 thou worth of bow tilt or whatever. And the readings are considerably off, quite a few thousandths because of it. So first up, when I mounted this thing, I found out running an indicator over it, I think it was a test indicator, it was bowed. So I had sacrificed a set of feeler gauges because they bend real easy. This is a thicker one. What is this, 11 thou? Yeah. I usually use the thinner ones because when it was mounted, to this guy with the screws, it bent and didn't put any kind of a load or anything on the pickup mechanism. Then one day, for some reason, I don't know why, maybe I was just cleaning, but I had removed the screws from one of these and the thing went up. So lo and behold, that told me where the bow's coming from. These things are not square. So I tried bending them and squaring them, and I said forget it. So I started making my own out of aluminum, and I knew that they're flat and they're the exact same thickness. So I was in a situation where now, that's pretty snug. Now our bow was gone, and any sort of a tilt was gone, because this is mounted on the X-axis and on the Z, which is perfectly flat machine surfaces, so it worked. All I had to do was this, and you can see I've got an oval in here, and I could loosen these up and just slightly, these are tight, but you can move this guy or you can move the block and easily get it straight, perfect, within a thou or less. Worked for a long time. Oh yeah, and on these guys I was making my own little posts so that I wasn't pushing it causing it to bow or any other flexing things. So that's basically what I did in the beginning. The y-axis has always been a problem, and I'll show you and explain why soon. So let me take you over to the mill, I guess, and show you some of the setups that I've got. Alright, I've talked about the history of what I've been through. I've talked about how touchy the scales are and problems that I've had. This is the latest and greatest. Here's the new TouchDRO with the new super connectors. I've got all the latest EasyView Pro scales on the machine. And so far it appears to be absolutely rock solid. I'm using one of those USB wall charging things. It's actually a double because one plug on it goes to the TouchDRO. The other plug is charging up my tablet. So Y is not connected. I've been using this thing for quite a few days constantly. Z and X are working, trying to make the new mounts for the y-axis, which I'll show the problem with in a minute. Hindsight, well, first of all, I'd like the machine to work for me, not me the machine. What I mean by that is to zero out an axis, you have to hit the axis. Hello. Come on, anybody. There. Now here's the 0 button for the axis, and then you have to close it. I was hoping the new app, would you close? There. I'm at an angle and my fingers are really dry. I was hoping the new app that Yuri was developing would have a 0 button by each axis so you could just zero it right out. But yeah, the half is really nice because you touch and then I can hit the scale and I can say half. There, just do half now, and then you close it and you dial into that position and you're at dead center. I love that feature, and I love being able to just slide this and go, here's the whole circle function in the row and all this sort of stuff. Absolute and incremental. I don't think the new app that Yuri's released has that because I don't see these buttons. I think Blondie Hacks is running or beta testing the new app with Yuri, and I just see this little home symbol or something here, and I don't see the 0 buttons by each axis, so I don't know. But in any case, it does seem to be solid, and I guess I'll take you down. Well, I'm not going to show you mounting. I talked about how touchy it is. Mounting it on the Z-axis is easy. It's a nice flat machine surface, so it's real easy. Put a test indicator and set it all up. Same way with the X-axis, piece of cake. Why not so easy on this machine? And I'll take you down to the side here and show you what the problem is. Yeah, you can kind of see the Y guy back in there. The problem was this whole thing is at the base of the mill, the casting, is at a weird angle, and it was always a pain trying to get it straight because you can't really, there's nothing to mount an indicator to start sweeping it to see if you got it straight. But it was working for quite a few years, and I need it fixed. So I've been starting to make these big blocks as I'm realizing the very front, I don't know if you can see it in the video, the very front of the machine is nice and straight, or it appears to be. So I made one block, and I'm still making the back block, and I had to buy a whole new scale. So hopefully I can get this thing squared up and working forever, for final. You know, I'm tired of it. The other thing, as you can probably see, I sacrificed a feeler gauge, a thickness gauge. Used the really thin ones here so that they flop easily and they don't put any more stress or tweak the scale or the pickup device at all. So I guess that's probably all I have to say here. The tack is done. It works nicely. I was offered by Yuri to help beta test the new app for the tablet, but I never heard back from him, and I see I think he gave it to Blondie Hacks to do, because she just released a video not too long ago here on upgrading it to, I think, glass scales. And originally I was going to do glass scales because the accuracy is there. But the pickup heads I thought were so big that I couldn't put them on here. And it turns out, dummy, I measured these guys and they're just slightly bigger than these. So I could have gone with glass scales, but now I'm in, what, about $400 now. And especially after another $70, I had to buy another scale here because I needed it longer for these blocks to go on. So all in all, the TouchDRO is very good. It's touchy. You've got to really align things up perfectly for it to read right. And the scales evidently are only good to 1,000, but I've found them better than that. Maybe I've been lucky. We'll see what happens with the new y-axis, whether it's still good. It is 100% repeatable. I found that as being solid. So I don't know whether I'd recommend a TouchDRO for a new user or go get a glass scale. There's other magnetic scales. I'd love to put something, now that I have another whole set, I'd love to put something on my lathe and have it tie into this display up here. That would be great. So all in all, I'm pretty happy, but if things start messing up, man, I'm going to go over to something else. I just want to say one last thing about accuracy, supposedly, you know, whether it's worth putting something better in the machine. Picture the problems that I encounter. Picture, rather than this thing being on the other side, it's on this side, and the arm comes across and it's bolted here. So now I had a dial indicator, 2-inch dial indicator on the front going down to the vise. So when you do this, this rod has a gear on it. It's pushing on the rack. So when you go down, this head is tilting this way. If your gibs are loose, it's tilting this way. Therefore, this guy is going to go up slightly. So I was running it. I would go down to 50 thou. It read 50 thou on the display. I go down 100 thou. It read 100 thou. I come back up to 0, and it read 1 thou. I'm going, why? You know, I've got the thing nice and straight and all this, and then I'm realizing when you go up, now the head is tilting this way, pushing the thing, the pickup thing down. So it pushed it down 1 thou, and I realized, wait a minute, my gibs are out of adjustment. And sure enough, they were really loose. Tightened them up and got them adjusted to where they're supposed to be. Now I go down 50, it read 50. I go up to 0, it reads 0. So that's one touchy thing, you know. You're on a machine that flexes. It's got all kinds of different flaws, if you want to call it, to it. So would you go up to a glass scale that's going to read you 1/10? No, I don't think it's worth it because the machine's too sloppy. The other thing is, yeah, you can kind of see the bar here. I've got a bar that goes down. There's a bolt at the bottom and a bolt here, and I can tighten it up so I can change the tram to the machine this way. And I had the bolts were pretty tight, pulling it back. When I loosened it up, because I was retramming the mill, all of a sudden the DRO is way off now. I'd go down 50 and would read 48. That's because the bow that was in the column was throwing this read head off. It was pushing it further away. So yes, these guys are incredibly touchy. So I had to loosen up the top and the bottom sets, and then reset the whole thing with a test gauge or a dial indicator, tightened it all back up, and it was working again. So just the slightest bow in this column throws this thing way off. So so I don't know what to say here. You know, these things are only accurate to 1 thou, but they've been good enough for me. I've been able to hold very tight tolerances with it. should I have invested in a glass scale? I don't know whether that would have been any better or not, because like I said, the machine flexes and it's going to throw it off. Okay, mystery item challenge for the week. If you guys can guess what it is, leave a comment down below. Kind of an interesting little thing. Kind of smooth this way, rough this way. Pretty bad challenge. Well, it looks like this was added on here to make it kind of at an angle for some reason. And it looks like it's been installed someplace, because there's a definite kink here and here. And actually I do see some kind of marks down in here. The tab doesn't look like it's ever been installed in anything. There's no marks on it or whatever. This guy too, no marks on it, bottom or top. And it does say on it BWL351. So if anybody thinks they know what this could possibly be, like I said, leave a comment down below, and the winner who actually gets it will win absolutely nothing. So good luck, guys.